Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed colleagues, members of the board, local dignitaries, everyone really, stockbrokers, dock workers, celebrities, nobodies, ladies, gentlemen, all comers, newcomers, the newly departed, the poorly depicted, people who are still teething, who are looking for a helping verb, the quote beautiful, the unquote unbeautiful, whose bones are just so, whose veins are just so, the drunk, the high, the blue, the down, los pueblos, los animales, foreigners, strangers, bookworms, those whose eyes are tired from trying to read something into everything, those at a crossroads, in a crisis, a quandary, a velvety chair, the dirty, the hungry, yes, we, the cranky, the thirsty, the furious, the happy, who are filled with life, bloated with it, gorged on words, and of course the bereaved, the bereft, and let's not forget the local merchants, the smiling faces, the placeholders, us, all we people slowly graying, slowly leaving, who make all this all possible, this activity, this festivity, this hope, this dream dreamt with open eyes. Friends of the deceased, the diseased, friends of the disowned, and of course also healthy, friendly people with great skin and congenital heart defects, sports fans, sufferers of autism, down and outers, non-believers, animal lovers everywhere, real people with doubts, without certainty, with nothing else worth mentioning, the majority of us, silent, stifled, delinquent, in the background, barely hanging on, running out of time, hope, air, heart, nerves, chances, money, blood, friends, courage, faith, hair, time, teeth, time, health, hope, all of it, those sans everything, those avec nothing, who can't stand it any longer, who never really could, gentle people, infinitely injured people, lost souls, ghouls, ghosts, descendants, shades, shadows, future ancestors, ladies, gentlemen. I know I'm forgetting somebody. Friends, likenesses, darknesses, citizens, people, hopeful people, everybody, every last, lone, dying, and inconsolably lonely person, fellow human beings, breathing people, breathers. Welcome. The fire exit's over there. I think you can also get out this way. Nice.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Will Eno.
All right.
You were in the dark. Maybe we can move back a bit into the light.
All right.
Unless you prefer to be in the dark.
No, I like to be in the light.
How's that? Is it better? Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, and others, Will Eno is the author of Tragedy, a Tragedy, The Flu Season, King, a Problem Play, Oh, the Humanity, and Other Good Intentions, Intermission, and Mr. Theater Comes Home Different, among other works. His play, Thom Pain, Based on Nothing, was a finalist for the 2005 Pulitzer Prize in Drama. And Middletown was, which is what that was from. That was the opening of Middletown. It was the winner of the 2010 Horton Foote Prize for Promising New American Play. I think it's very promising.
It was. Yeah.
Eno is the recipient of a Guggenheim Fellowship and a Helen Merrill Playwriting Fellow and an Edward F. Albee Foundation Fellow. In 2005 to 6, he taught at Princeton University, where he held the Hodder Fellowship. Some of you know that. It's a big deal. His play, The Flu Season, won the 2004 George Oppenheimer-Newsday Award for Best Debut by an American Playwright. So we're very happy to have him here to read to us, for us, about us. I'm happy to be here or there.
Stay here.
I'll stay here. You can use me. Feel free to use.
But I'm very happy to be here, and I have to say I have the sweetest, most supportive friends in the world, and every single one of them, when I said that I was coming here, they at some point interrupted me and said, "I'm sorry, why are you going to be there?" And no offense, but you're going to be going down there. So it's an exciting thing to be here, and I'm grateful to Derek.
Turn off your cell phone, by the
Yep.
way. 'Cause
And I brought my fancy bag because I knew I was coming to
I
a
noticed that.
fancy place. I'm just going to read a couple of things from the play, The Flu Season, which has, it's kind of a love story, and it has two narrators, one who is called Prologue and one who is called Epilogue, and they kind of have a different relation to the story and some different thoughts about it, and they appear periodically to introduce scenes, and so I'm just going to read a little bit of them. This is after there's an act break. This is the beginning of Act 2, Prologue. You've come back. Some time passed in the last few minutes. Christmas did. Life continued. Christmas ended. Those decorations that made it through the wind and cold unbroken now are all down and put away. Whatever was frozen froze harder. On the south lawn are snow forts and snow angels losing their child-made form. Very, very north of here, a polar bear is eating a seal cub. And far over that, a dead satellite launched from Florida, America, during an earlier presidency, is floating out of control in freezing outer space. Back on Earth, we are in the reading room, in the common era. And then epilogue pipes up. What if you were writing a play or doing anything and your feelings changed? You didn't even know how you felt anymore or what you thought. You couldn't keep going. The image disintegrated. Your mind wasn't up to it, or your heart. Would your claim to realism be lost if you didn't somehow incorporate the change, the not knowing, the cold feeling, even if only subtly? Would you just abort the whole thing, turn your back on everyone and wash your hands of the whole bloody mess? What would you do back on Earth if this were you, if this were yours? We move our scene to the reading room, sure, why not, in the common era. And then it goes on and things get worse, I guess.
That's opening of the second act, right? That's where that occurs.
Yeah. I felt so organized by putting tiny little pieces of paper to hold my spot, but one of them fell out. So now I don't have that feeling that I had earlier. But,
Is it disorganization or something else?
it is not the opposite. It's the opposite of organization, but I don't know. It doesn't quite feel like disorganization.
Because only
that
one
makes
thing
sense
is
to me.
missing, right?
So in the love story, things have gone poorly, I suppose. And that was one of why it felt very right and even kind of necessary to have two narrators, as I was just kind of struck by the thought that love gets a little bit of a bad rap, I think, in literature because it tends to be written in the post stage. People don't tend to sit down in the middle of a great love in their life and write a story about it. It tends to come out of that when things have ended. So I was trying in some way to redress that by, I didn't end up doing that, but I was trying to redress that. So things have gone terribly for this man and woman, and the narrators appear. Prologue. Do you remember somebody mentioning an otter when verb followed noun, when the man and woman spoke lovingly and plainly in simple yups and good old household nopes? The woman said it was such a nice line. Yes. I forget what the man had asked her. I forget the exact feeling, but I can use the word beautiful. I could say that. I could say a lot of words if I sat down and tried, and I do know where this is going, so to some place. Lights, action. And then prologue. Darkness, inaction. As an aside, have you ever been stung by a bee that had nothing against you, or bitten by a dog who otherwise seemed to like you, or fell due to a gravity not your own, or hurt someone you loved, or used to love, or never did? Ever suffer loss? Ever slowly lose control of something? Ever slowly lose control of everything? Fail? Ever fucking really badly fail? And then again, it goes on. This is such a nice place to be on a Friday night. So thank you very much for being here. And I'm just going to read this thing.
But you didn't start yet.
What? Yeah, no.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no. No, I did, but then me saying no to someone, no, I didn't. This is it's called Behold the Coach in Sorrow, Uninsured, and it's a press conference of a guy who is a coach of some team. I never really specified, but I imagined it was kind of minor league baseball was sort of what I imagined. But so the setting is a press conference, and he comes in and puts his keys and phone and cigarettes and stuff down on a table. All right, everybody, let's just get going. You people know what I've come here to probably say. This should all come as all is no surprise. The phrase, of course, you are familiar with. It was a building year, this last year was. We suffered some losses. Yes, we suffered some last season. And we had to start out all over in a fashion. We had to come at this thing as if it were, you folks in the press can tell me if this is a pleonasm, a new beginning. We made some changes here and there and here, and we made these mainly, mostly, with the fans in mind, because we wanted the fans to be happy. In our minds, we wanted the fans to love us, and I think they should be happy. In my mind, I think they should love us. Listen, last year was not the easiest year. The plan was that it would be for building, for rebuilding, for replacing what was lost, replenishing what was gone, and trying to reverse a routine of losing that had grown ingrown and somehow strangely proud. Our strategy was, in theory, to betray that which had become merely habit, to betray our very fear, the very thing that's kept us alive, the thing that says to us, don't cross the street without looking both ways first, don't speak your mind and certainly never your heart. But habit's a hard habit to break. And was it only habit that kept us from dropping to our knees in the middle of the street and sobbing and begging, can somebody help me please? Was it just mere routine that kept us on our feet with our mouths shut and our hands in our pockets? One night after practice, some of you might appreciate this, I found myself standing in the unforgivable light of a grocery store, staring at my reflection in a freezer and realizing, you're not having a bad day. This is just what you look like now. This is who the years are making you. The praying kind probably would have prayed. I just wanted to grab a courtesy phone and beg into it. Could someone come to the front of the store and clean up the spill that is my life on this earth? Could somebody please just somehow help me through this punishing, crushing, nauseating sorrow? So that's what this last year was. We had to look hard at a few things, and surprise, surprise, we found that they looked hard back. But in some ways, I think we have to be happy. We sold some hot dogs. We got some sun, some fresh air. We played some close games. Some of them, even, we were still in until right up to the end. It was a life. It really was. And granted, no, this was not the greatest year. Some people are saying it was barely even a shambles. I'm sure there's a more charitable view, but okay, fair enough. Fair enough. I had no idea how hard was until this year came around. Nights, whole nights, weeks of nights in a row. I bet I walked 1,000 miles up and down my street alone. I came home and went out walking, my eyes all runny, just walking, counting up the things I don't have anymore, thinking of the fair lady of my own incompetent sonnets, who I lost, by the way, or failed to win, or forfeited in some miserable show of inwardness or downwardness or shame. It was a hard year, tough schedule. My love is like a sunset, stunning, and then over. And in the year since her, there has not been a single thing but ashes and formalities, a year of cigarette butts and minor car crashes, rosemary for remembrance, glucosamine and chondroitin for the joints, and I will never love anything or body again, and I am not young and handsome, and I could not coach a gallon of water out of a paper bag. So that was some poetry. And so, yes, obviously I've had my doubts. I've had what you people might call personal problems. But I tried to run things different with a little elegance, a new uniform. I tried writing that thing about the sunset. I tried to act with some sense of honor and calm amidst the urgency and the vulgarity of the, I don't know. You tell me. You lived through it too. You lived right straight through it too. What was this year? Can we even... I don't know. Christ, Jesus Christ. What did you feel this past year? Of what would you be speaking if you were sitting here this year speaking of the last? And did any one of us have what he would call a winning season? And what would that even look like? And could someone tell me while we're at it, when is high school over? When comes high school to its high schoolish end? When begins my true life as me on earth? Because I really don't understand when the seriousness is supposed to start, and I'm so filled with wanting. I so crave to know just a little anything, a fact, a meaning, a song, even a jingle, a little lullaby to be put to sleep by, to sleep. I'd like to know a real poem by someone other than me, with a vocabulary other than mine, just a gentle little rhymey poem for the old boy with the clipboard and whistle. It was a real hell of a time this year. What's that saying about the penguin and the 50-yard dash? Well, that's exactly what it was. Really. It was a trying time, a building year, an endless, gorgeous, endless loss, which now is now over. And we have how many more left to us to lose? Now, I know you guys in the press are going to have a field day with some of the things I've set up here today. And I know you're probably thinking, something seems to have kind of snuffed out the fire this guy had when we hired him. You're probably thinking, could someone in this condition ever get it all together and grab it with both hands and win us a championship, given the fact that he's halfway gone in distraction and mourning for a woman who was solely herself in every inch of her body and might have been the best thing that ever happened to him, assuming he's even capable of letting someone happen to him? Could someone like this ever show us how not to lose? Well, I'll tell you, because I came here to tell you a few things. I came here to feel the burn from your flashbulbs and to speak a few things into that harsh light, my heart included. And the answer is, I don't know. I don't know if I can lead anyone to victory or even lead anyone anywhere. I don't know if my plan is a good one or even if I have one. I'm asking you to just let me be still, to let me turn my face upward to the heavens while the rest of me slumps earthward, and let me say, you've got to please just hear me, and let me stand here and say to the sky or the ceiling and to all of you, and I quote, I don't know, in general, and in particular, all I know is that someone has to be everywhere, and it's hard not to realize, I am the one who is up here now. Before all of you who are sitting there, I am the one in the position I'm in. I stand before you as that man, in spite of all the grim realities and lonely terms of this great game and all that we who play it face. And I lived as that man through this last year, past, and I think I should be happy. I do. I think we should all be very terribly proud and happy and afraid and thrilled, really thrilled to death at the upcoming year and all of the life it will naturally contain. This is my feeling on this. We probably only have time for one question. Ow. And that's that. Thank you. Is that a good amount of reading?
Yeah. Yeah. I think we only have time for one question. No, I'm just kidding. Actually, we might, I'd actually love to hear you read, because I think we have a little bit more time. Since there wasn't much to say about you in this introduction, so I think we have, how long would it take you to do the airplane one?
I don't have it with me.
Oh, you don't have it with you? I have it.
Do you really? Yeah, I think that's 6 or 7 minutes.
Yeah, that would be good. All right, well, can someone ask their one question? And while they do that, I'll run out. I'm not attached, right? And I'll get your other play, just sitting outside. Is there one question about that? Oh, good.
Not easy, but I think listening to you, I had sort of two reactions. One is that you're a man of few words. And what I mean by that is that the verbiage is in short phrases, short clauses. There are no long sentences. And that represents a kind of diction that is, this is the second point, it's a lot like poetry. And what I wondered is, are you hearing me all right?
Yeah, absolutely.
What I'm wondering is whether that just comes out of you, or is there an actual effort to amalgamate the two modes of expression, so to speak?
It's funny. I don't know what I guess a short sentence is 3 words or 5 words. I was going to say I don't know what a short sentence is, but I guess I do. But I don't think of myself as just writing in short sentences. But I think as a person, because I am a person. It didn't say that on Derek's thing there. But I guess that is a little bit how thought and maybe even feeling occurs to me in a, and I don't know if that's true for people in general, but it seems to be short bits that sort of evolve, and that's what a feeling is. It's not a broad thing that takes 5 minutes. It's kind of incremental, and I guess what I can tell you is I write really slowly, and it takes a long time. So I'm aware of where the period goes and all that.
Part of my reaction may be just listening to you, just the way you read your work, and that in itself seems to be very, very significant and important. That it comes across rhythmically and musically in some basic way. Anyway, is this a question?
Well, I definitely I tend toward that over meaning. I think if something sounded better but meant something different, I'd probably go with the new meaning and try to patch it up somehow, because that does strike me as in a funny way the best way to get a meaning across somehow is if you can get the sound right that's close enough to the meaning you were sort of shooting for, something like that.
There's a phrase in that stuck out to me when, in the flu season, when she says, the nurse is talking about the man, and she says, he said, she's quoting him, she said, and the comma, and she says, it was the comma.
Everything will be all right eventually.
Yeah, he said, everything will, no.
Things will work out. I can't remember what it is. I don't know.
There's, okay. Well, I'll find it somewhere. Okay, anyway, here's your play while you're doing that. It's two-sided.
That's interesting.
Saved paper.
I'm used to just reading one-sided pieces of paper, but I think I'll just adjust because I'll just go like that.
Because the problem is with those other readings, you missed half of,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
doesn't make sense.
Yeah. This is also a kind of a press conference setup. It's a woman she's a spokesperson for an airline. So you'll have to use your imagination. Although I think I'm not so manly a person that won't be.
Actually, when I read it, I thought it was a man. I didn't read all that other stuff you wrote before.
Hello. First of all, let me just say that we are suffering with you families. Let me say just that we're suffering, that we're staring at each other and up into the sky like you, and that we have, while staring, tried to act. In a first very small step, we have, as of tonight, called off tomorrow's company picnic. I know that doesn't sound serious. We are canceling other events as well because of the failure of the airplane. We don't know what we should do, honestly, or what we should say after doing it. But we do know the last thing anyone wants to see is us enjoying life, drinking too much, and driving home drunk with someone from personnel with a temporary tattoo and a sunburn. So the picnic, of course, is off. I have a father who died, incidentally. He taught me sports and going outside picnic things, so I was just thinking about him. My father's gone, possibly as yours is, though mine died in a chair. He died sitting quietly and not in a plane in flames, screaming downward at the speed of sound. His final resting place was an unraveling easy chair in the living room. He was only human, and though it could have been, this was not listed as the cause of death. Countless nights between relatively fatherly men did nothing to lift the weight of that sad time. Excuse me, I'm sorry. I don't know what it would be good for you to do. Try those things we all try. As for why, it is, as of tonight, undetermined. Who knows? Whether an act of God or some handsome pilot's drunken error, whatever it was, here we are. And we'll try to move forward with time, taking hard comfort in the fact that with or without us, time is moving forward too. But so yes, it was Flight 514, the night flight to Johnston, and there were, at this time, no survivors. We have been told so little so far. Gravity, we trust, was a factor. Did they know when it was still up that it was coming down? We hope not. We hope they felt secure on their airplane, as do we on our earth, and denied the fact of their coming doom, as do we ours. We hope they were enjoying the in-flight movie, which was a Finnish film called The Bleeding Parade. I don't know if these small details are helpful. I do have some news or business, some awful business. Families of the deceased get a round-trip ticket as well as a bereavement allowance, which should help with travel and funeral plans. You get so little sometimes. You people whose loved one is gone, you people who are, in fact, also going, dying, but from the inside out, from having time go by, as died my dad, as will probably die me, not from doing anything daring, not flying or skydiving, just sitting there, being human, with your mouths open, looking so sweet and deaf. What a world, isn't it? All of us. There may be other compensation. I want to say I'm the spokesperson. It's my job and it's not easy, but I want to say to you, I understand. I think I understand. You waited and waited at the airport. You raced there in the first place through unspeakable traffic and the parking situation, and then you got to the proper gate and waited, and they didn't come, and the monitor said delayed, and I'm sure it was confusing and then frustrating, and now just so sad. And can any sad things ever even be compared? Is it insulting to you if I think they can? I'm sorry. My degree was in hospitality management. I fell into this job through an acquaintance in the field. We're all going there, wherever, at different speeds, in different styles. I guess I am, as the spokesperson here, speaking to you, asking you to look around. Look at your hands. They used to be so tiny. Now they're not, and they're old. There are lines in our faces, around our eyes, from years of just laughing and using the wrong soap. The body is its own disaster area. The human face is a call for help. Help, we need help. We are in flames. Landing gear is mangled. Radar is blank. Please foam the runway. We are coming in, coming home and down, and so shall you all. I'm sorry. We don't have a formalized tack we take in events like this. We understand how little there is to say, but that something must be said. We are grateful that nights like this are rare, that country air has a record of somewhat excellence, but I know that doesn't help. I want to help, but I know I can't, and I know that doesn't help. So help me and hear me and understand, I beg you, that I'm just saying, maybe it was quiet. Maybe all the lights and engines were out, and it was just a dark and quiet thing falling through the night, the whole thing coming apart like a comet, but also unlike anything. And maybe, I'm just saying, maybe it was the high point of something. Maybe it was somehow something's perfect ending. Maybe all the people in the crashing plane were thinking of you, the soon-to-be still living, were wishing you were there, assuming useless crash positions among the blankets and little liquor bottles, living, busy, falling through the air, a silence in the silence, about to make a serious noise. Maybe they felt famous, or special, or chosen, loved, maybe, somehow, finally. I don't know. We don't. This was, by the way, an experienced crew. They had flown several thousands of hours. They knew what they were doing. We're so sorry. We wish it could have been another way, but it wasn't. We are asking you to be grateful. Here we are, that's all, just us here, still, and we want you to see the miracle of this. Officially, we would like you to feel giddy, for your heart to pound, for you to feel blessed that the plane stayed up for as long as it did, that the plane could even fly at all, that the thing actually got off the ground in the first place. This is all I can currently say. I'm so sorry. I would tell you more if I knew more. Oh, thanks.
I found the line I was looking for.
All
It
right.
was,
Just that right there? It's a collection of 5 short plays called "Oh, the Humanity" and other exclamations, and it the coach. It's 5 sort of thematically related. It's the coach and the that airline person are two of the plays in it.
yeah, they're like scenes, I suppose, right? They're all each like a scene, a long scene.
Derek wants to use the word "scenes."
Oh, you don't
so
like
I think
scenes,
that's fun.
The line was,
See?
yeah.
Now you know how I feel now.
He says he never did well when people tested his personality. Then he says it's just a stage. Then he doesn't say anything, except then he says, everything will end happily. The comma makes me worry.
That's right.
Everything will end happily. So I just like that you came out of the play for a sec, or you're paraphrasing, but then you referred to the actual punctuation, and you were talking about it. I mean, you're very specific in your use of punctuation.
I am. I always. The period is at the end. I always. Yeah. It's just my thing, kind of.
Do you think all playwrights worry a lot about punctuation?
I don't really know. I know some who don't even seem to worry about spelling, really. So, and I kind of related to your question a little bit. I do really hear it very particularly with a certain speed and a certain what would you call that? It's not, it's sort of melody, but.
Ictus.
Yeah.
Ictus. Well, you have, I mean, one thing I've noticed, because we've worked together also a certain amount, and just that, I noticed this thing about punctuation in your writing, and I guess it gives, as a musician, being a control freak, as a composer, we get to notate the music wherever, in exact order, we get to tell people exactly where to play what, and it's a control freaky kind of thing. How much control do you want? As a playwright, you have certain control. You control the order of the words, but other than that, not a whole lot. So people could, so what you can control, I suppose you do control.
Yeah, and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's fine. It doesn't make any difference, and it's fine because people kind of roll through things, and sometimes that's sort of the right thing to do. And this will seem silly, or like I'm trying to be silly or something, but I've been missing. For years, I've been thinking we could use one more piece of punctuation, and maybe it's something the Institute could develop down here. But it's
We don't develop.
yeah,
Okay.
well, in partnership.
Nothing
Yeah.
practical.
But it's something like a semicolon, but a semicolon seems kind of too fancy, and it doesn't. It's not. It doesn't.
It's only half of something, really, a semicolon.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Right. But it just somehow it seems like if you're writing something that's in any way felt and deep and real to you, somehow I don't know why the semicolon bothers me more than a double M dash, something like that, which is also unspeakable.
Double M dash.
Yeah. Just I mean it's just.
Race. Yeah.
But there's something that is that kind of pause that connects the two things, but is not quite a break. And I just remembered, do you know that, what's the A.A. Milne poem that's James Morrison, Weatherby George Dupree took great care of his mother, though he was only 3. I don't know if people know that thing. I looked at that a couple years ago, and it's almost sinister the way it ends in almost purely acronyms and punctuation. That in fact you couldn't. It's ampersands and all sorts of. It says took great C/O of his mother, though he was only 3, and it seems so strange because it's meant to be read to a child, and then you get to this bewildering patch of meaningless symbols, and I don't know what A.A. Milne was up to there with that. And maybe the Institute, when they're done with this new piece of punctuation, they could get to work on that. I don't know.
All right, well, we'll see if there's any takers for to develop a new punctuation. I think it seems a little too practical for the Institute, but it could be arcane enough. I don't know.
Can you describe how it felt the first time after you said one of your own lines, having it spoken by an actor?
I guess not. I guess I can't say. And for some strange reason, it has never felt as strange as I would think it would feel, or as because people ask. That's something that people ask from time to time, and I don't know why that is. I can remember great moments of just of being excited and kind of amazed, and but then there's also something that maybe because in a funny way, language, though I feel closer to it than most things in the world, it also feels very far away from me in a funny way, so that it seemed very separate anyway, and so that someone else saying it was not as strange as I might have thought it would be, something like that. But to answer your question, no, I can't describe what it felt like there.
I grew up in a house with a playwright, so we used to read my dad's plays and his translations amongst the family. We read one of yours last night, actually. But Is it hard for you to listen to regular conversation?
It isn't, no.
Because it's like if I'm sitting in a restaurant and there's a piece of music going, I'm going to start listening to the music. I don't care what the person opposite me is saying. I'm going to gravitate toward the music. It's a very annoying habit to have.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, wow, this might happen to you when you're just talking to people, that you start analyzing the conversation.
I feel lucky that I have friends and we all sort of do that a little bit, and it doesn't seem like a rupture kind of. It just all sort of tends to tumble forward. You reminded me of this great thing. There's this David Eagleman guy who's probably, he's too poppy, I think, but sort of a brain scientist guy. And he did these tests on drummers' brains working with Brian Eno. He did these tests to see if drummers' brains were different from other people's brains, because he had this.
I think they're slightly smaller.
Yeah. That turned out it was the guy. They were. There's something called a click track, right, that you use in a studio. That is this computer-generated thing to just keep everyone on the same time, right? So the drummer from U2 was there, and he said, "I think the click track is off." And everyone said, "No, we checked that 10 times." And he said, "Really? Because it sounds like it's off." And because drummers have smaller brains, they indulged him and said, "Okay, we'll change the thing." And they actually made an adjustment. And then later, Brian, checking the thing back, realized that in fact it was some unbelievable figure, like 0.04 of a second off, that this guy had detected. And so there was speculation: do drummers just walk around the world just hearing everything that's slightly out of time, kind of? And they don't. They just walk around the world, it turns out.
I mean, it could have been something he was smoking, but I would think that drummers, I remember that the drummer in my band for years, I mean, he has great time. And some people just have, some drummers have different attributes, I guess, and some just have great time. And this guy just had great time. So he actually did better without a click track than with a click track. The click track really bothered him. That's a track that's giving a beat in your ear when you're in the studio to keep you exactly on the beat. And he could, and we would measure the amount that he differed in the studio. It never differed by more than 1 metronome marking, which is a tiny amount because, if you're going at 120 beats per second, that's saying that he was never off, but he's like, he would do, 120 beats per minute, he might do 119 or 121, but he never did 118, So, I mean, that was how good his time was, But that's, again, with music, there's, your work seems to have a real, it does have a built-in kind of rhythm to it, and I think some of that maybe is the punctuation. Were there other questions about these pieces?
I just wondered whether you ever wrote plays for several people, or mostly just for one or two.
No, I've written a bunch, but I always feel slightly embarrassed when I see playwrights reading those plays, and they're jumping around and putting on crazy hats for this part. And so I wanted to spare all of you the embarrassment you'd feel on my behalf for trying to read all the different parts. But I do. And I like writing monologues. I think I tend to be more interested in one consciousness coming apart rather than a couple of consciousnesses fighting it out. Or I have tended, I don't know.
You had that, I mean, Will, I can say, I mean, he was, we kind of got pushed together at a party, so that's how we met. But then years later, you kind of got this big bump from Thom Pain, because it's a monologue, and that ran for, I don't know, a long time, 1.5 years or something.
Yeah.
I mean, which is pretty incredible for a monologue to run in an off-Broadway theater for that long. And then, I mean, I think that's one of the things that got a lot of people to notice your work, more people to notice what you were doing, that particular work. And you have written I mean, what's the difference for you between writing a monologue and writing for two people, or writing? I mean, it seems like
In a funny way, I came to playwriting. I was always trying to write something or other, and came to playwriting fairly late in life. Actually, I was 27, and something bad happened to me on March 15th of my 27th year, and I thought, oh, I should read that Julius Caesar play. And so I did, and I kind of went on a Shakespeare kick for a while, reading Shakespeare. Why am I saying all this? Because, so I in some ways, in a certain way, I believe in theater more than I believe in most things, but I also still feel a little bit like that kid who goes to see a play and just wonders why are those three people talking to each other and ignoring the 1,000 people sitting on this side over here. So
and some of your plays deal with
yeah,
that directly. Yeah.
but so a monologue, it somehow just seems a little bit truer because it's just a person talking to people.
They're the only other people in the room.
Yeah.
I see. Okay. Yeah. I mean, sometimes it's uncomfortable confrontations. That's true in Thom Pain, but it's also true in that play where there's the photographer, and the photographer is taking a picture of all of you, and they talk about, can you move? Yeah. That looks great. You know, and it's makes the audience feel very self-conscious. Is that? So the audience in that case is the other character, or
Yeah,
characters.
yeah, yeah. In the bully composition, that play. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a short play that's also in that collection of short plays, and it's sort of about these two people. Well, these two people are just setting up an old camera to recreate an old war photograph, and that's essentially what it's. In some weird ways, it's the opposite of a play, kind of, because it kind of, in some theoretical way, depends on the audience achieving some particular state, and then the guy takes the picture, and that's the end of the play.
Have you seen cases? I mean, certainly in Thom Pain. I mean, there are moments where it really relies on the audience doing or saying something, and something may happen that you don't predict.
It's funny, this play, Thom Pain, it came down to the McCarter for just 3 days or something like that. I think when I was over at Princeton University for a year, and the person I'm about to speak of may be here. I don't know if she is. But so the character, Thom Pain, speaks to the audience quite a bit. And sometimes people would say little things back here and there, and that was fine. And but somebody just started. It was kind of an amazing thing, which it's my own damn fault, kind of. But so a question was asked by Thom Pain, and a woman began to answer the question, and then kind of just went on, and really went on to this whole, took everything into this whole other area of talking about things that were going on in her life and things like that. And then I spoke to her afterward. I didn't seek her out. She kind of grabbed me somewhere. But it turned out she'd been at a silent retreat for 3 weeks or something like prior to showing up to see my play.
Not here.
No, I don't know. No.
A yoga retreat.
But I guess if I had a beef with playwrights, I do think the audience is really something to be considered in all sorts of ways, and I mean that just with love and with appreciation, and that sometimes is expressed in sort of aggressive ways. But I had a very clear, and I thought pretty good thought, but I can't remember what it was.
Oh, it's gone.
Yeah,
It'll return
Yeah.
tonight.
yeah.
Yes.
I was wondering, you have such a quirky sense of humor. Have you ever tried, or have you done, any writing for a certain kind of child, like Roald Dahl books and things like that?
I haven't, no. Oh, really? Oh, that's nice to hear. All right. Oh, that's a whole new. Oh, that's a whole new
Quirky
thing.
children's books
Yeah.
series with Maurice Sendak and
Yeah. Um, hmm.
I'm wondering, you said, it surprised me when you said that you are a slow writer,
Uh-huh.
because in the previous monologue where this person describes how he feels, it is very, it's like, it just all comes tumbling out, and it is, I find, it touched me very much. It's very emotional. It just doesn't come tumbling out. You have to really work at it.
the question was just she was saying she was surprised to hear that he's a slow writer because in the last monologue it just feels like it comes out very naturally. Yeah, or the one before the last one. Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you get emotionally deeply involved in what you write?
sometimes I feel embarrassed saying that I don't for some reason, and I also think it's probably not true because there's nothing better than kind of making yourself laugh about something or kind of welling up a little bit. That Nietzsche's statement, if we have the words for it, it's probably dead in our hearts, sort of has always made sense to me, kind of, that, and I say that with great love and respect for words, but they do seem somehow secondary to a thing.
Is language frustrating to you? Or
It is, but I guess in the way that just somewhat, I don't know what, I'm going to try to create a metaphor here or an analogy or something. I was just thinking of a friend you like, but there's some antagonism there, and there's some, and also I guess this would, forget the analogy, but language is always going to be smarter than you are, I guess, and that makes it exciting to me to mess around with it, and I get upset at, there's a kind of smugness that people can approach things. There's certain writers, and you can tell they just think they really are the master of this thing, which is so mysterious and so infinite and ancient and all that stuff. So it is frustrating, but I that's because of my love of it or my respect for it or something like that, I guess.
other questions?
Curious to know, what is the story about the penguin and the 50-yard dash?
Yeah, there isn't.
She wants to know what the story was about the penguin and the 50-yard dash line. Oh, no, there isn't. But yeah, you refer to it in this offhanded way like everyone should know it.
Right. Yeah.
But that happens to everybody, right? That people refer to something that they think you should know, like a TV show
Yeah,
or,
yeah.
of course you know so-and-so, Lady Gaga, but you might not know her.
Well, then after he says that, what's that saying about the penguin and the 50-yard dash? Well, that's exactly what it was. So that is one of his attempts at saying with the most clarity that he can find what the last year was like for him.
So do you find sometimes that you're talking around the real thing? That there's something there? Do you have a thing that you set up and you say, okay, now I'm never going to say this thing. I'm going to talk around it. Or maybe you don't know what the thing is.
I think it's more the second, and I'm sure that I end up talking around the thing, but I promise that that's out of cowardice and not because I think I like the sound of my own voice. I'm sure it's deep fear that would make me circle something like that. But as hard as I can, I try to be going toward a thing or near. Everyone has such lovely accents here. There's
What are you working on right now?
I'm right at the very moment. Sorry.
Many things.
Well, two main things.
Can I just say that Will has now a residency at the Signature Theater,
Yeah.
right, in New York. So that's like a 3-year thing? Or
5-year.
5-year thing, 5-year residency okay, so.
Yeah, and there's an Irish actor who I've known for 10 or 12 years who does a lot of Beckett stuff, and he's a good friend, and I wrote a monologue, in fact, for him that it just begins, "I'm not from here," and then goes on. But he'll be doing that at the Signature Theater in May, and I'm still messing around with the writing of that, and then and I have a play called The Realistic Joneses that's going on up at Yale Rep in May as well, that has 4 people in it, and I'm still very much working on that.
You've done a lot of stuff in Ireland. I mean, you've been back there quite a bit. Do you have an affinity for the theater? Because it's obviously a real theater country, but
Yeah.
and they drink a lot too. But.
Yeah. Well, I just have been there once.
Oh, I thought you'd been. Oh, okay. So I'm wrong.
England, went to England a lot.
England.
Yeah.
England. One of those.
Yeah,
countries.
rather different. I went to Kilkenny, Ireland this summer to work with this guy, Connor, on this same monologue, and half of my family is O'Keeffe's and Sullivan's, and what's the other one? Some other Irish name, but
So that was a Rick Perry you pulled right there.
yeah.
What? I mean, I thought you had plays done. Have you had stuff done there but not actually been there?
I never have, but for a long time, everything that I wrote was on in England, and mainly London first, and either that's what you're thinking of, or
I
you're
think
thinking of someone
that's
else.
what I'm thinking of, but somehow I transported it to Ireland. I don't know why, from London.
Yeah,
But
did you know?
did do a lot. I mean, I noticed that you were getting a lot done on the other side of the pond, which isn't so common for American playwrights.
I guess not. Yeah, and it was and I have to say the first play that I had on was this thing, Tragedy, a Tragedy, and it started. I just left it at the stage door of the National Theatre in London with a crazy note written on the front page of it, and was amazed to get a phone call about a month later from this guy named Jack Bradley, who they called Eeyore, by the way, just for continue the A.A. Milne thing. But he wanted to do a reading of it at the National Studio, and then from that, a BBC production on the radio came out, and a production at the Gate Theatre. But so I had this funny experience of then I would go try to deal with these tiny little rinky-dink New York theaters and be treated as if they were the Royal National Theatre of Great Britain, kind of, because I was just amazed at how that went, and it isn't how things go really.
There was just one other thing I've always wanted to ask you, which is sometimes your plays read like a. There are lines that make me double over in laughter, but then they might not read that way on stage, or that is not necessarily how you intend them, I think.
I imagine there's a lot of things out of my control. Knowing you, it's hard to imagine that I was not in any way trying to be funny and you were doubling over in laughter, but maybe that did happen. I'm not sure. But I would imagine if you're going to stick by those words, doubling over in laughter, I bet I was at least trying to be a little bit funny.
Oh, good.
There,
Okay.
I don't know.
Oh, yes.
How would you feel towards the director that twists your ideas away from
She said, how would you feel about a director who twists your ideas away from what you had intended?
That happens, and that's in some ways that's sort of there's a kind of the European model for theater is kind of it's a little bit more of a director's theater than a writer's theater, and so that which being a writer I have that it's troublesome. I haven't had too many horror stories. I went to go see this play, The Flu Season, down in Sao Paulo, down in Brazil, and He's a very nice director, a very good guy, and very well regarded. And he kept kind of being funny. I know he spoke perfectly English, but he would if I ever asked anything very direct about when can I come see rehearsals, he would look to his translator and they would, but then I finally went. I just went to the opening night of the play, which I really don't like to do, to just show up somewhere and go see something, and was amazed. There's a great Brazilian actress who I think was in her kind of mid-70s, and it was in the play The Flu Season. And I think the line is just, she comes into the room and says, with some flowers, and says, "Here are some flowers, dear." And the reading of the line was that she did that, and then she took out a breast and put it into the mouth of the woman who was in the hospital bed, who she was bringing flowers into, which I had not intended, actually. I never saw that really in that line, but that, to me, that was the largest step away from a very simple thing. And,
Yeah, well, okay, I think we have time for one more question. Yes. To quote.
I wondered if you ever did anything overtly political. Your announcement from the airline person was slightly, but I mean, I'm thinking, you know, you could pretend to be the head of the Keystone Pipeline project, right?
Yeah.
Or a senior oil executive, and you could skewer people like that if you wanted to.
You know, it's
The question was just whether he'd ever done anything overtly political, because, yeah.
not, I guess not overtly, and I certainly pay attention, and that Rick Perry moment really was kind of amazing, because it's not like he was naming the first 3 secretaries of state. You know, it was, I'm going to cut these 3 administrations. You know, it was a serious thing that he forgot, and that was, as a human being, that was probably as likable as I found him, or certainly as relatable. Because I'm always going around talking about cutting certain departments and forgetting which ones I'm. And you did you?
Well, I was just a follow-on to the question about monologues versus multi-character plays. It struck me listening to the monologues that there are different characters emerging in the monologue. So does that ever come into play where you're actually within that monologue dealing with different voices, and that's every bit as challenging as, you know, writing several different?
It isn't challenging, but it is different, and it's kind of a relief. And it's funny. I have, this is a friend of a friend, but this guy has the most unfortunate habit of, he does a lot of voices when he's telling you a story, even if it's a really tragic, sad story. And I'm trying to think of an example, but it's just the sound of an uncompassionate person when you hear this guy tell a sad story of, and doing these very particular accents and voices and stuff like that. And I just quickly happened to kind of one of my least. I wrote this play, Thom Pain. Part of it was I was probably a little bit kind of mad about all these one-person shows where I just don't like that thing of someone jumping around and now I'm this person, now I'm that person, and I didn't like the very, very static nature, because coincidentally they were also very static. You know, it was just someone saying 1965 was the hottest year on record in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, you know, and then nothing really, the audience was not necessary in any way for that. I'm talking too much.
Oh, that was, okay. On that note, we will adjourn here and thank you. If you have any other quick questions, I suppose you can come talk to him. He's
Please do.
likable enough,
Please do.
as Obama said about Hillary.
Yeah.
Thank you all for coming, and
Yes, thank you very much.